collaboration is key, because you want to be surrounded by people who are like-minded and motivate you and that you respect, and the opportunity to literally hang out with them as well as then get to work with them. And you know, you're in a world where, you know, if you're a visual artist or whatever sort of artist you are, you definitely feel like you're orbiting on the periphery a little bit. You're not fully fitting into a certain degree. So when you meet someone else who can speak our language, you know, you want to talk a lot to that person. And so it definitely, I've collaborated and with a lot of artists, and you learn from them, and even down to how they work and their work ethic and their lifestyle and how that will influence their work. You know, I've learned a lot about that over the years, and sort of unfortunately how a lot of visual artists, including myself, for certain periods of time are quite destructive. And I don't know if that's to do with self-worth or visual arts not being respected. I don't know, there's something to that. But then I look at other artists who I like really admire, and their work ethic and what things are in place there that get them to that space. And it might be healthy life habits and people they surround themselves with, things like that, you know. But then I've also created spaces myself where I want to nurture good relationships and maybe facilitate and help and learn from that too. So I have that with a gallery space, and you know, and I introduce artists to other artists, or sort of give them the shortcuts and certain things. So that in some way, if I'm hosting a show, that in some way is still a collaboration of sorts.
Returned to Dublin after our 3 years in university. You know, we had ambition to make work that kind of reflected the work that we were subjected to when we were experienced in the UK. And I suppose our entrepreneurial hat went on very early as artists, in that we walked up to Project Art Centre and we knocked on the door to the artistic director. At that point was Cathy McCardle, and we said, we want to be artists in residence here. And she was like, I don't know who you are, but I like your confidence. And we ended up making 2 pieces of work there over the course of an 8-month period. And it was that kind of confidence in what we could do, but also, you know, we wanted to succeed as artists. We wanted to be in this working environment for as long as we possibly could, and, you know, to be successful at it. So when we also wanted our work to tour, we also wanted to make work. You know, we were always a company, you know, with an international outlook. We always wanted our work to not just be Irish based, but to travel. So we immediately start to identify other artists who we admired, and we try to connect with them. So after Cathy McCardle had left Project Art Centre, Willie White then took over the running of the building and the artistic program there. And we immediately, with the help of Niamh O'Donnell, started to form kind of an interesting collaboration with Project Art Centre and started to solidify that as that building. I mean, it was Project Art Centre is the you know, it's where contemporary theatre makers want their work to be performed. It's where contemporary practitioners want to be associated. So our relationship with Project started to grow when Willie White began to work there, and our collaboration with Willie and Niamh O'Donnell was hugely important for Gary and I to kind of give us the next steps up the ladder. So with Niamh and Willie, we started to identify companies abroad that we wanted to work with. So Gob Squad, who are Berlin-based British-German company, we really wanted to spend some time with them. And again, the collaborative kind of opening up, Willie then put us in touch with Madeleine Boughton, who was then British Council. She's working for the British Council, and Madeleine kind of brokered a deal where Gary and I were able to go over to Berlin for a week, see a premiere of a Gob Squad show, and then work with them over the week, them as our mentors. So the collaborative support mechanism was something that we needed pretty much immediately, and it's something that has grown and grown and grown and grown since then. And the work that we make it's just so important to have as many good people as possible in the room with us. A lot of time, Gary and I feels like we facilitate rather than just write and direct and produce. It feels like we facilitate other artists to come in to a process with us and help us achieve it. So the collaboration is, but without it, we're nothing, to be honest. So it's hugely important to acknowledge that, and we're constantly working on making those collaborations better all the time, and working with new people as well. I mean, we've got a core group of people that we work with, quite a lot, but Gary and I feel it's very important that we don't become too insular, and we invite people in who we've yet to work with before, particularly younger practitioners, younger arts workers, just to because it's important. It's important to give people an opportunity, because that's exactly what happened for the two of us. Because it was difficult coming back from the UK and having a very clear goal of what you wanted to achieve as an artist, and not knowing if Dublin was going to be able to help you achieve that at that point. I mean, the play was the king and queen, the play was the thing. We weren't playwrights, we weren't making plays. So how do we make air work? How do we make air work in a contemporary Dublin? So these are things that we were trying to figure out. So our connections with as many like-minded people was hugely important from day one.
I haven't ever collaborated with another artist on a project, other than I've made drawings for poetry books. Gallery Press was one of them. But I would do that myself, and then they would coordinate it. So I mightn't even meet the poet, I've done that maybe 4 or 5 times. But I haven't ever had anybody working in the studio with me. And I've never worked in a shared studio apart from college. So that's not something I would do. The other thing is, I do work with gallerists, so we'd be back and forth whenever there'd be an exhibition. But often it would be on email, occasionally the phone, and sometimes you'd go there. If it was a big gallery space, you'd go up and come back. But again, it's not really a collaboration. It's there facilitating your exhibition, So it's something I would be quite interested in doing, actually, to see how it would go in the future. But you're probably talking about networks as well. So I mean, ever since social media arrived in 2009, Facebook, I mean, every artist in the world seems to be on them pretty much, and Instagram. So there's a big shared community now on social media of artists, I suppose, from where we're located in the world. A lot of EU, UK and Irish artists would know each other and would have met each other online. And then sometimes you meet them at your exhibition or their exhibition. And that's been absolutely fantastic, And before that, you would just meet your peers at exhibitions, maybe,
Wow, collaboration is huge. It's been huge. It's been beneficial. It's been key to all that I am doing. Because in order for me to reach and to reach more audiences or more people or people that cannot be reached, it's been through collaboration. I mean, for example, when we've done the collaboration with visual arts, we've done it with Crononog, and I mean, if we have not collaborated with, and thank you, David, for bringing us on that. If we have not collaborated on that, I mean, very rarely do you see what we do in settings like that or in spaces like that. And even still recently, I done another collaboration work with in Carlo. I can't quite remember the name. It's actually gone on my head now. And it was for kids. It was done in the GAA grounds. Is it Come Together now? I can't quite remember. It's for community. But there were 2 kids that came to that because of what we've done with visual in the past. And these kids were shy individuals, and they wouldn't feel comfortable. And if not for that collaboration, we would not have, and God knows where that's going to lead those kids, you know. But I feel like without important collaboration as those, my work, because my work is all about people, my work would not would not touch as many people that I want to touch. And because I feel like there's something in this art form that I don't have to cancel you, or I don't have to just because you are just being yourself. Being yourself is enough. It's attractive, you know. Being yourself is enough, and you don't need anything else but being you. So so for me, because I know this, and I want even kids and teenagers and even adults to experience this, even if it's for 1 hour. And those collaborations and the people that put those collaborations together, and for taking the step and faith in having something like this, because obviously, for example, having street dance or DJing hip-hop music in a setting like the visual, the gallery, it's unconventional. And for people breaking a status quo and doing something innovative and new, to foster those collaborations. So for me, collaboration is huge, and I cannot express enough how important it's been to my work, in touching new people, new lives, inspiring, and even me getting inspired, you know. It's everything really. It's everything really.
Interesting question, because I'm always talking about the ecology of my work, whether it's with through Live Collision, or my work as a producer with the New, for example. And actually collaboration is 100% key, and it goes back to that point of, you know, valuing other people's expertise and valuing other people's roles within the making of work. And I suppose also understanding that, like, quite often there's quite binary relationships that happen, like say in theatre making, for example, where you have your director and you have your actors and so on. But actually, you know, especially my work with the New and my work within live art practice within Live Collision, those roles are much more diverse, as in, for example, with the New, we could cast a piece of work that would have a dancer, a visual artist, an actor. Everyone comes into the room to collaborate. Our designers, our lighting designers, our stage managers, everyone's opinion, everyone's research, everyone's input is valued. And that obviously that gets guided and edited and supported through the director and through the different structures that are there. But I think collaboration is a really key element of how we make dynamic artworks, because I think for now, one of the key questions, especially with theatre or live work, it's always about how it meets a public. It's always about how it has a space in public and how it could be embraced by a public. And I guess very few people have the answer to that singularly by themselves. So that's a very important element. And again, in terms of collaboration and building broader ecologies, I suppose the support work is also part of my job, you know, about thinking about multiple funding strands, thinking about multiple initiatives that can both drive the artistic intention of the work and also sustain the work, in terms of an ecology that allows the work to be sustainable and long living. So for me, I'm always thinking on multiple platforms about how do we create the work in the immediate term, but then how does that work have a resonance and a place in a longer term. And I guess like my practice as a producer and curator is that I work with artists over long gestations in which artworks happen. So my commitment is always to the artistic practice of an artist from which work comes. And so I think staying committed to our beliefs in practitioners and their work, and then finding the kind of multiple nexuses that support that work over time is part of the challenge, but also part of the thrill of building a sustainable trajectory for artists and for our practice, so that we aren't living in pods of isolation and we aren't living in pods of like singular moments or productions, but instead about thinking about how an artist can affect our world, our environment in the long term. So building ecologies around that, I think, is really important. And the relationships that sit around the creation of a piece of work, both creatively and supportively, are really, really important. So for me, collaboration is a key aspect of how work is made. And then, of course, also I've made a lot of work in cultural and social contexts in terms of collaborations with non-artists and non-theatre makers, for example. And again, it goes back to obviously a whole other area of practice around the ethics of collaboration and the ethics of participation, but essentially it comes around how we bring people around a central idea and how we do that in an authentic and meaningful way, and put value on people's experiences and expertise within that.
Thank you. I think collaboration is essential for every artist. Just one, because you can't go too far by yourself. It's really difficult and it's a really lonely journey. That's one. But secondly, collaboration has given me the gift of knowledge, just because it's a case of when I'm doing work by myself, I'm pulling from my own well of memories, from my own well of knowledge. But when I'm collaborating, I always end up leaving the collaboration with such beautiful insights, such nuggets of knowledge that propels me further than I ever thought I would go. Like each collaboration pushes me twice as far, because I've just soaked up, not like a parasite or nothing, it's very symbiotic, but I've soaked up knowledge and vibrancy from other people, and I'm like, okay, this person that I collaborated with that way has given me this kind of vision or this kind of ideas, or has colored my art in a way. And that is so essential, because then you just kind of end up creating the same things over and over again. Or even if you don't create the same things over and over again, you kind of hit a bump in the road, like mentally, because where your art comes from is your life, your passions, yourself. And if you don't have any other influences, it becomes really hard to keep creating, you know? And so collaboration does that for me, like helps me keep creating, keeps me fresh. I'm like, what are y'all thinking about? What are you thinking about? Oh, okay, pour into me so I can pour back into you.
Oh, it's everything, because nobody and nothing, no one thing works in isolation. It like, and especially when you're working in the public realm and when you're working in community arts and community space, it's all about linking and connecting people. And that is what collaboration, that's what the essence of collaboration is about, bringing all those different stakeholders and balancing it all, and producing this, wonderful outcome of an artwork that's going to reflect and stay with that community for a long time to come. Because a lot of our art is there, well, some of our art is there for like the last 5 years, but a lot, it all stays there relatively long term, a minimum of a year. So, and then in terms of putting on the project, and every single project that we do, both as the festival and outside of the festival, it's all about working with different groups. It's working with the local authority, it's working with community groups, it's working with artists, it's working with a wide, diverse number of stakeholders, and trying to get that balance, link everybody in together, and everybody has their say and their expression and input into the final outcome. And I suppose that's where my area of expertise is, I think, is like bringing these people together, you know, to kind of have everybody have an input, and then, you know, hand it over to the artist, and then the artist delivers the piece.
Yes, there's a couple of things around this. Like, I think there's a really important part of my work which is to do with community. Like, I spent time in Galway a long time ago, like it's 15 or 20 years ago, and I was part of a kind of a bunch of people, a bunch of friends who were interested in the same kind of films, the same kind of work, and we all stayed friends for a long time. And even though we wouldn't necessarily work on each other's films, even though we did sometimes, there was a sense of sending each other our films in order to see what that person thought, or did you see this person's work, or have you read this book, or, you know, just a general kind of sense of community. And that's lasted a long time, and it's grown, and I've had it replicated in slightly different ways with other friends and newer friends. And so that kind of sense of working in a scene, as it were, for all that word is not a great word, I think is really important. I think you can't make work in a vacuum. And that to me is the key collaborative thing, is because a lot of art is about developing a language, you know, a language of filmmaking, a language of writing, you know, a language of music. And you develop language as a social thing, you know. If I know that I can create work in a certain style and it will be appreciated or understood, more to the point, by other people, that will encourage me to work in that way. So it definitely, people's ideas bounce and feed off each other. And there's nothing radical in observing that, you know. I mean, just look at like schools of painting in the 15th century, like, to observe how that has always been the case. So that's really important to me. In the specifics of film is a very collaborative, it's a very collaborative medium. You know, just watch the credits for any film, like there's literally hundreds of people working on it. But collaboration in film is very expensive, because if you want to film something, you can pay somebody X per day, and it's a lot. X is a big number in that, or you can just figure out how to do it yourself. And I've always been a believer in, I'll figure it out and I'll do it myself, or I'll work with one particular person who I really trust and we're good friends. And so a lot of my early work was made with tiny teams, and the credits would be embarrassingly short. It would be, you know, everything, Tygo Sullivan, camera, Fergie Ward. And that would almost show you up as being some kind of poor person who can't afford to employ a proper boom operator. But it was just a way that I had, it was a priority thing. Like, if I had resources, be that money or anything else, I wanted to make sure that it went into the film, rather than spending it on people that I couldn't really afford. And also, I don't mind filming something for a month, rather than only having the money to pay somebody to try and film it in 3 days, when you just won't get the same depth of engagement. So that's kind of the other aspect of film. And I enjoyed that, and I enjoyed the autonomy of it. But as the years went on, I began to collaborate more. And the most recent film that I made, which is, I'm just finishing now, which is a feature film about the moon and moonlight. And the credits are a mile long, because we were working with cinematographers in China and poets in North America. And it was a really, really collaborative thing, where I would just find somebody on the internet whose work I liked, and I'd approach them and say, would you like to film something for this film, and give you total autonomy within this kind of brief. and then send me back the material and we'll see what we have. And it was incredibly interesting way to work. And sometimes it was useless, terrible. People would just send it back total crap. But other times, most of the time, it would come back and you'd be really surprised and you'd go, oh Jesus, I'd never have thought of doing that myself. That somebody's totally surprised me here. And that was a real eye-opener, you know, as far as the power of collaboration and the power of using an idea. And much as I said about connecting with somebody's mind in an audience, you know, you've got the film is here and your mind is here, the film is here, and the audience's mind is here, and you're using the film as a way to connect with that person. In the same way, I think collaboration can be the idea of the film is here, my mind is here, and your mind is here. And we'd use the idea of the film as a way to connect emotionally, intellectually, whatever else. And it can be incredibly rewarding. I mean, other times you will just get somebody on the end of the phone, on the end of the Zoom meeting, and they're just looking at you going, so what do you want me to film? And you're like, well, maybe nothing, because you just don't get it. And that's fine too. But sometimes when somebody just goes, I kind of see what you mean, and they'll mention could be a painting or a poem or a song or something that they go, is it kind of, that's the atmosphere that you're looking for? I know what you're at. And then you have this moment when you get the material back and it's great, and you just go, oh, I love this person. And it's going back to the thing I've been talking about. It's about connecting.
Huge. And as far as going into business, I think collaboration is just so fundamental. I've mentioned my business mentor, Mary Carty. I was very fortunate when I was submitting my PhD to come in contact with Dr. Nikos Papadakis. He's a philosopher, and he was finishing his PhD. And if I thought it was hard to talk about an ecological art practice, if you're an eco-minded philosopher, they have no audience. They have no visibility. You know, so anyway, he was on LinkedIn and he said, look, I'm going to try and offer people philosophy mentoring, and they call it coaching in the States. And I said, oh my goodness, I would so love that. So I was probably one of his first mentees. And I was actually sort of developing my online course business. And because he's taught for 10 years in academia, he was the perfect resource and complement to me. So he helped me deal with the nerves about teaching online. I haven't got teaching experience. And he's now just this week launched his first course on my platform. And so he's dealing with all the tech and, you know, emails not turning up to the participant, you know, all these type of learning hurdles that you go through when you first start to teach online. You know, it's not so much about the content, but managing everybody's experience. So I really, really treasure that. And he's in California, we've never met. So that I suppose, level of, well, it shows that ecological insights are a bit thin on the ground, but with technology, we can come together in sort of innovative ways.
To jump on to the answer about collaboration, is that collaboration has been everything in the company. And I think that, you know, the kind of family tree starts with Jenny and I, and we work very closely as co-directors. But then, you know, very quickly expands to our core group of associate artists. They include people like the designer Niall Sweeney, like composer Al McKelliher. And then the family of artists from there, the chart goes out, and there's a lot of people that we've kind of collected over the years. And so a number of our shows, you know, Riot being the one that kind of jumps to mind, was kind of a product of doing clubs like our club work, and getting people to come and do spots, you know, a 10-minute spot, a 5-minute spot or whatever. And then just collecting this family of amazing people over 10 years and going, God, we have to make a show out of this. We've got to, and we were kind of, with Riot specifically, we were seeing this kind of variety, kind of extravaganza in cities all over the world, but we weren't seeing it in Ireland at all. And so we kind of wanted to fill that space. And so, you know, I think all of the projects that we do are deeply collaborative. We work a lot with music. And so with people like Al McKelliher or Ray Scannell, we've worked in kind of deep collaboration. So that's something that comes very natural to us at this point. But I think it's also at the kind of the foundation of what makes the company tick and special. Jenny, would you have anything to add to that?
No, absolutely. Like, we're really deeply collaborative organization, and collaboration can be more difficult. It takes a lot more time, it takes a lot more energy, like to for everybody to move along in the same way, but the outcomes that you get are different to the outcomes that you get when you're leading a project yourself, and it's those outcomes and that process that are certainly at the absolute heart of the company.
Huge, really huge. Initially, when I first came to Ireland, I was working in a co-working space, in a creative co-working space, which is called the Fumbally Exchange, and I'm still a part of it today. I'm also now in the Mart studio space and gallery in Dublin, but initially the Fumbally Exchange was where it all kind of started, because I was working as a graphic designer with a lot of like-minded people from different fields and all like self-employed, and we were doing like these sketch clubs and we were drawing each other during lunchtimes, and that's really what gave me the confidence and re-initiated my passion for drawing and painting, and that's really where it came from again. I mean, it was always there, but it was just that collaboration, that doing things together, having a little exhibition, having some kind of side project that evolved beyond just being a side hustle, and that was really amazing. It really gave me the confidence to like go on my own, evolve my drawing, having a community around me, some opportunities for like having a little pop-up market or an exhibition. And then like what really helped me as well, the collaboration aspect, was online, and particularly on Instagram, because there is a huge community of illustrators and artists online, and it's a pretty good, positive community, and you have a lot of challenges. I've done the 100-day challenge. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but you do something for 100 days, and there is a community and people supporting your work, and it starts as an initiative every single year, and you do something for 100 days, whether it's like painting, singing, taking a picture of something for 100 days, and you become more familiar with that, and people are doing it together. So you're really driven to make it happen. And so that was a huge aspect of the collaboration aspect of my work. And more recently, it's been now about 2 years almost, that we started Epoch, which has a mission to represent the diversity of female or people identifying as female artists in Ireland, and trying to appear on different scenes. So whether it's like street art or the exhibition world, or doing some charity work, workshops, like we have a lot of things that we would like to achieve down the line as well. And it's also to give that collaboration and have a platform anyway for collaborating, and really trying to promote female arts in Dublin, in Ireland, and beyond. I mean, we are trying to keep it there, and it's been really interesting to collaborate, to see the background of everybody. I'm more into like the illustration, graphic design background, but other would be more into sculpture or performance or fine arts or printmaking. So we all learn from each other. We all try to find a common ground, and it's been a huge help. And the skills of like, how do you even hold a spray can? What do you do with this? It's been great learning experience, and we've definitely done a lot of things that I wouldn't have done, or I wouldn't even know where to begin with if I was on my own. So that was really interesting. And now again, being part of Mart in that studio community, and also the Fumbally Exchange as that creative co-working spaces, And artist co-working spaces is great because you always have initiatives from people, and even in times like now when we are in lockdown, we are touching base every now and then. We're organizing coffees. I think Matt from Mart was organizing some conversation like that with artists, and how does it affect their work, their creativity, like their tips. It's really fitting, I think, having a community and a collaborative practice is really a huge, has a huge impact on my work, on my life, and that's why I keep doing it. And yeah, I just love it. I think it's so important.